Welcome guys, so we all have heard it, he must be tall or he must be taller than me when it comes to dating women. This particularly seems to be an issue on dating apps. When we look at the filter options its female users use, as Bumble published some time ago. Women seem to place some value on height in men, and in this video I want to explore with you how important that is and what the actual preferences of women are when it comes to height. Now I wanted to make this video shorter, but when I realized I had entered the lines then, I decided to make it a little longer and include more studies, as this seems to be a sensitive issue for many guys. Stick with it, and I swear afterwards you know everything about women and height. As per the usual, we look at a couple of studies to get a solid idea about this. I will do a short summary and then I will discuss a little why the results are what they are. Now the first survey is from British YouGov research, including 2,000 people. Here we get a rough idea about what the ideal height is. On average, women say a romantic partner 5 feet 3 inches, that's 160 centimeters, or shorter is generally too short for comfort. While a partner is 6 feet 3 inches, 190 centimeters or taller is too tall. The ideal height for a man is 5 feet 11 inches, or 180 centimeters. But we already see there's certain ranges given, so there is a tolerance for different heights. Whether that's reflecting the reality of mating choice or not, we will see when going through the studies. Also, 4% of women said there is no too short and 7% said there is no too tall. So the vast majority prefers a partner within this range, ideally around 5 feet 11 inches or 180 centimeters. With the survey reporting an average height of 5 feet 10 inches for male Brits, this is just an inch or 2.5 centimeters above male average. Interestingly, women between 5 feet and 5 feet 7, so about 150 to 170 centimeters, think 5 feet 11 or 180 centimeters is ideal, but women above that height prefer men to be 6 feet and 1 inch, so that's about 185 centimeters. So we can see that the ideal height of a man is clearly related to the woman's own height. Another study from the journal Frontiers of Psychology analyzed assortative mate preferences with regards to height. They asked over 500 people between 18 and 77 years old. The study used line drawings to give orientation to people. The results indicate an inverted U-shaped curve for attraction based on height, with preference for tall men, but not too tall. The exemplary figure at 185 centimeters, 6 feet 1 inch, was already less in demand than the figure at the height of 180 centimeters. I would assume that the curve would continue to go down at 190 centimeters, that's roughly 6 feet and 3 inches. That is also indicated in the findings from the YouGov survey, where the majority of women found 6 feet 3 inches or 190 centimeters to be too tall. This study confirmed the aforementioned findings in the YouGov survey, that women found the ideal height of a partner to be 5 feet 11 inches on average or 180 centimeters again. This makes women want men about 2.5 centimeters or an inch taller than average in their respective countries. Since we established the ideal range in height from surveys and studies, one question remains. How much taller than a specific woman should you be? A study from 2013 from the Journal of Personality and Individual Differences sheds lights on this question. Interestingly, male and female perspectives on this diverge. While women found it most satisfying when their partner was 21 centimeters taller, that's 8.25 inches, men found it best when their partner was 8 centimeters, just over 3 inches smaller than them. Now we get into the good stuff. Is what women say in surveys actually how they behave? Let's have a look at the study by Staub et al. From 2013, termed The Height of Choosiness. They used the data of a speed dating company called HorryDate with a final sample size of over 5,700 people, making over 128,000 choices. Note that speed dating is possibly a short-term relationship context, since people do not have time to make decisions based much in character. They will probably resort to more physical judgment. This might distort the impression as women might behave in reality. In other studies, it has been shown that when thinking short-term, women place more value on physical characteristics. Average height for men in this analysis was 179 centimeters or 5 feet 10 inches, and 165 centimeters for women, 5 feet 5 inches. And they had such interesting results. All subjects gave preferred height ranges with minimum and maximum values. That resulted in a graph. We can see that women are given more narrow ranges than men, and while men prefer shorter women, women prefer taller men. The team of researchers also calculated a number of competitors for each male participant based on the women's height preferences. Since fewer women gave low height preferences, shorter men were less preferred and faced higher competition for those women in whose height preferences they fell. Men below 178 centimeters or 5 feet 10 inches and above 190 centimeters or 6 feet 3 inches faced way more competition. However, the increase of competition was significantly larger for short men, as women were generally more accepting of taller men. Interestingly, both men and women were less likely to give a yes response in the speed dating context when the other participant fell outside of their preference range. While men's probability dropped from 48 to 43%, women's probability dropped from 32 to 25%. This represents a relative 10% drop in men's probability but a 22% drop in women's probability. Although both sexes display tolerance for people when they are outside their preference height range, women were more selective when someone did not fit their previously determined preference. Now we can also see that men were generally more likely to give a yes response choice for women, and women were more hesitant than men overall. However, within this paradigm, men and women had similar behaviors, just in opposite directions. While women were less accepting of shorter men and more accepting of taller men, men were more accepting of shorter women but less accepting of taller women. Note that the steepness of the angles of the likelihood lines when set next to each other are basically the same but angled in opposite directions. Now, since height preferences are always related to one's own height, what was the relative height that participants were most likely to give a yes response? Men said yes most often when the other person was 7 centimeters smaller than them. Women said yes most often when the other participant was around 25 centimeters taller than them. Now, with all these participants being of different heights, what was the relative height between men and women that resulted in most matches? Turns out 19 centimeters. So when participants were 19 centimeters apart, the likelihood of both saying yes and creating a match was the highest. So we can see that around 20 centimeters height difference is the match zone for men and women. We can also see that while shorter and taller women are less likely to receive a yes response, but not to a large degree, men were much more likely to receive a yes response when they were taller. However, it is clear to see that this likelihood curve starts to flatten at around 180 centimeters or 5 feet 11 inches. Women and men who were taller also had on average taller matches. However, note that the overall given average of the matches was exactly the average height of the participants overall. I believe that shows us that while women prefer taller men and men prefer shorter women, and women are more selective than men, height does not have that big of an influence after all. Otherwise, the average height of matches would be driven up by female selectiveness way above average, and the average height of matches with men would be above average of the participants. Now, in the context of researching this study, I also stumbled upon this graph, but take it with a grain of salt, alright? It might not represent female preference totally accurately. I do think it conveys the idea, however. Here we can see that the zone where a guy meets about 2/3 of women's expectations is between 175 and 193 centimeters. Peak access to the dating pool is between 178 centimeters and 188 centimeters. An absolute peak is at 180 to 185 centimeters, and that's between 5 feet 11 inches and 6 feet 1 inch. Now, since we see a preference for taller men, but the overall match height was still even with the average height of the participants, we must wonder what the contextual importance of height is for women. A study on the ideal partner in which 68,000 women from 180 countries were interviewed finds this. Most heterosexual women place moderate to high importance on height. Around 45% found it moderately important, while just over 30% found it very important. 15% found height to be of low importance, and almost 10% didn't care at all. To give some context, women find certain character traits and physical attributes such as strength to be very important in a majority. So while height does influence partner choice, 70% of women find it to be of no, low or moderate importance. However, on a more general level, 90% said they prefer their partner taller than they are, of which 80% said taller, while 10% said much taller. That height is a contributing factor to partner choice, but is of moderate importance on average, also shows in the statistics on what height is actually found in couples. The 2017 panel study of income dynamics also includes height, and this is what they find in 4,666 married couples. Here we can see that the overall distribution is actually a little softer than previously suggested. There is an amount of couples where the woman is actually taller, many same height couples, most couples where the man is taller, and some couples where the man is much taller. But on average, the height difference is 6 inches or 15 centimeters, and that's exactly what the average height difference between men and women is. It also reflects an even compromise between the values found in the studies, that most women want an ideal height somewhere between 20 and 25 centimeters taller than them, and men want around 7 to 8 centimeters smaller than them. If we mix the values, we find that 15 centimeter height difference lies exactly between 7.5 and 22.5 centimeters. So we can see that height difference may be a sort of mating negotiation where an average values even out in the middle. Alright guys, let's sum this up. Height is moderately important to most women, and most women require a guy to be taller. To the majority, however, it is not of high importance, and only a minor percentage requires their partner to be much taller. Women and men are both oriented based in their own height when choosing a partner. The accepted range of men is between 5 feet 7 inches and 6 feet 3 inches, so like 170 to 190 centimeters, with the average ideal height being somewhere between 180 centimeters, 5 feet 11 inches, and 185 centimeters, 6 6 feet 1 inch. On average, women find their partner ideally to be 21 centimeters 8 inches taller than them in surveys. But in studies that observe female choice in a possibly short-term relationship context, women are most likely to give a yes response to 25 centimeters taller. The match zone where most couples match is around 15 centimeters. Also, height preference follows an inverted U-shaped curve, and there is a thing as too tall as much as there is a thing as too short for most women. Women are, however, more accepting towards men taller than their preference in comparison to men shorter than their preference. That women generally accept a relatively wide height range and most also prefer just taller instead of much taller shows that women are, although more selective, still relatively open-minded about this. Also, there is a considerable amount of women that do not attribute a very high importance to it. I also want to shed some light on what makes women want taller guys but not too tall, and why we see an inverted U-shaped curve in attraction to tall men. Apparently, attraction decreases when men get too tall or too short. Women usually want to feel protected, and height exudes ability to dominate and security. Very short guys may simply not be up to the task or be perceived by women as being so, and if they are, probably have trouble convincing their surroundings. There also seems to be a relationship between tallness and success. However, women also want someone they feel matched to, maybe someone where they can put their head on his shoulder. Kissing also becomes awkward when there are great height differences. And at a certain body height, medical issues also come into play. The heart has to work harder and life expectancy starts to decrease. There's also an issue with maintaining bodily aesthetics for guys when they get too tall. Now we're done, but there's 2 images I did not want to withhold from you that put things into perspective. One a little more funny and one a little more touching, so stay tuned. I'll just let the video run so you can have a closer look. Thanks for watching, subscribe if you're interested in seeing more common. Hope that helped you understand women's height issues a little better. Thanks for watching, guys.